Making his way back from the deep sea region, Li Yun Xiao defeats the martial emperor, Hun Yuan, only for him to get possessed by a mysterious entity inside the rainbow fog. Fortunately, he manages to recover the violet nine-striped muck's corpse and heads back to Verdant's seaport, stealing the Star Mansion sect's 6th-tier Green Phoenix battleship. Finally, Yun Xiao returns to Martial Flame City, defeating and intruding Qingyang Huo, and reuniting with Meng Wu. Towering over Meng Wu, Yun Xiao feels relieved that there's nothing wrong with her body aside from the unconsciousness. In fact, the girl has a life force even stronger than that of a normal person. With all of his worries quenched, the reincarnated soul brings out the spirit-nourishing wood from his storage ring and begins the process of waking her up. Right then, Xiao Qing Wang, Li Chunyang, Li Changfeng, Luo Yunshan, Jimeng, and Hong Bing come running there, agitating the mythic cloud-shaking, thunder-roaring beast. Following Yun Xiao's earlier orders, the creature starts buzzing with electricity, forcing everyone to stay back, Pikachu if he locked in. Meanwhile, the boy uses his signature Buddha-like projection to peel off the spirit-nourishing wood's external layer, dubbing it the Spirit Training Arts Cocoon Shedding Technique. The entire process takes 2 days, leaving Yun Xiao with an amazing spiritual supplement that could advance a normal refiner's spirit power instantly by a whole tier. Yun Xiao gets up, preparing to nourish Meng Wu with the concentrated item. Witnessing the scene, Yan Shang questions why he is so similar to Gu Fei Yang, mainly in how easily they do things. She wonders if it's just because he is that Lord's disciple, but quickly realizes that it can't be the only reason. After all, Yang Di is also his disciple, but the two could be more different. On the other hand, Yun Xiao makes Yun Shang feel like Gu Fei Yang is right before her very eyes. Suddenly, a wild thought crosses her mind. What if, just what if, the boy is his son instead? She instantly dismisses the idea and goes back to watching Yun Xiao perform the procedure by constructing a formation. However, Yun Shang is unable to completely shake off the strong impression the boy makes every time he is in front of her. It's almost as if he has Gu Fei Yang's very shadow in him. Seeing Meng Wu floating in Yun Xiao's arms for her treatment, Teacher Lu feels jealous and wishes that she was there instead. Lock her up in horny jail. Once again, she tries to shake off a wild thought, only to fail miserably. The reincarnated soul's unspoken riz is just too strong, rendering her unable to suppress the desire to be in Meng Wu's position. Right then, Yun Xiao announces that he will now start teaching an unparalleled spirit training art, instructing everyone to memorize it. Following this, the boy begins reciting a bunch of stuff that no one in the cave is able to understand. Fortunately, the refiners outside Square Inch Mountain also hear Yun Xiao's voice and recognize the recitation as a spirit training art. Ji Yarong realizes that it is even more profound than what he learned from his young master Yun last time, causing everyone to panic. Some run around to find a pen or a brush to write down the boy's words, while others choose to rely on their memory. Yun Xiao probably had the latter struggling for their lives though, since he continued to talk for a full hour. Whispering that her spirit will get stronger, the more materials she consumes, the reincarnated soul leaves the rest of the process to Meng Wu. He asks the girl to wake up as soon as possible, causing her unconscious self to erupt in tears. Yun Xiao starts walking towards his entourage, getting questioned about his whereabouts for the past few days. Having thought that his grandson died outside, Li Chunyang strikes him down with his iron fist of love, only to get his fingers crushed by the boy's steel-like body. Closely observing him, the geezer realizes that Yun Xiao is emitting the force of 4 quadrants. Unable to believe that the reincarnated soul is a 1-star martial lord now, Chunyang completely loses his mind. The other martial artists in the cave suffer the same shock and end up smashing their heads into a wall, wondering if anything is even worth it anymore. Xiao Qingwang, who was so excited to show off that he broke through to become a 2-star martial grandmaster, now stands in tears, lamenting that there's nothing for him to boast about. The commander screams at Yun Xiao, questioning how they can live with themselves when he can cultivate at such an inhuman speed. Meanwhile, poor teacher Lu can't do anything but wail like a little kid. On the other hand, Li Chunyang and Li Changfeng cry tears of joy and go crazy, excited at the thought of no one in Tiawu being able to hold a candle to their boy. Brimming with joy, the grandpa goes a step further and asks Yun Xiao when he plans on becoming a 9 Heavens realm martial sovereign. Hearing these words, Everyone else spits out in disbelief. After all, not even the entire southern region is capable of producing such a powerful warrior, much less Tian Shuai. Shaking their heads at the senile geezer, the martial artists drag him away from Yun Xiao and tell him to stop dreaming. Little do they know, Oldie is actually Lisun al-God Ib. The reincarnated soul himself acknowledges that becoming a Nine Heavens realm martial sovereign isn't an easy task, especially since the only reason he crossed a major realm recently is because of extreme luck. Since there's no chance of such great fortune befalling him in the future, Yu Xiao announces that he will have to advance one step at a time. Right then, Han Bai, Chen Zhen, Jia Rong, Zhang Qingfan, and Xu Hun come running there to celebrate the boy's return, just in time for him to claim something beyond absurd. Since Yun Xiao only progressed greatly because of his luck, Xiao Qingwang and Li Chunyang feel relieved that they aren't total failures. Of course, the reincarnated soul has an entirely different definition of what it means to cultivate slowly. According to him, trying to get to the Nine Heavens realm by working hard, one step at a time, will take quite a while. To be particular, Yu Xiao will become a martial sovereign in about 2 or 3 years worth of time. This statement turns everyone inside Square Inch Mountain into a Picasso painting, as there's no other way to capture its sheer absurdity. Yun Xiao's words split the listeners into 3 factions. His friends and pets support him with all their hearts, the refiners bow in respect, and the martial artists dive head first into the nearest wall. Getting annoyed by all the shenanigans, the reincarnated soul heads off to check up on Meng Bai, declaring that no one is to bother him. Walking through the perilous cave, Yu Xiao soon arrives at the kid's location. As usual, his earlier command ends up being filled with wisdom, since no one except him would be able to withstand the density of the poison in the area. The reincarnated soul slowly approaches his disciple, whose strong poison is enveloping him in silkworms. Activating his unyielding tyrant physique, Yun Xiao touches the green silkworm, but is unable to break through, making him realize that Meng Bai's poison body would have melted him, if not for his body tempering technique. Deciding to speed up the process, the boy brings out the violet 9-strike monk's blood and pours it all over his disciple. The green silkworms enveloping Meng Bai turn into a cocoon and change color, putting him in a state of deep sleep. Telling the kid to take care and mature properly, Yun Xiao heads out of the pill tower. Outside, extensive efforts are being made to repair the Martial Flame City Lord's residence. Nearby, the 4 refiners from the Star Mansion sect are helping Duan Yue recover and excitedly greet their young master Yun. The harem of glazers continues to grow. Passing them a gentle smile, Yu Xiao suddenly turns around, only to see Yu Rong standing there in complete shock. The old servant prepares to go on a rant about how the reincarnated soul has managed to reach the 4 quadrants realm, getting stopped right in his tracks. Speaking on our behalf, Yu Xiao doesn't want surprised people to take up any more precious panels and invites Yu Rong for a chat outside. Walking through the city, the reincarnated soul remarks that Ling'er must have invited him to meet her, revealing that he intended to visit the girl soon anyway, to acquire the finances needed to repair the city lord's residence. Infuriated, Yu Rong scolds Mr. Bottomless Pit for trying to extort money from them again. Annoyed, Yun Xiao spares a glance in the old man's direction, scaring his heart out. Yu Rong is taken aback, unable to comprehend how a single glare from a mere 4 quadrants realm martial lord can scare an 8-star martial king like him. Towering over the old git, Yun Xiao reminds him that Ling'er is the person lending him money. So if the geezer has no right to talk down on him, especially since it was his stupidity that cost the Tianyuan Commerce Guild twice as many resources in the first place. With these words, Yun Xiao orders Yu Rong to tell Ling'er to look for him herself and heads out. Sweating his balls off, the old servant admits that he was wrong, insisting that the young mistress has some important business with him that will benefit both parties greatly. Yu Rong practically begs Yun Xiao to join them. However, this only annoys the reincarnated soul further, declaring that being an 8-star martial king isn't an impressive feat. He implies that the old git isn't worthy of inviting him without Ling'er. In fact, Yu Xiao is surprised that an intelligent person like her would even send such a dumb geezer to invite him in the first place. Bro giving Kendrick a run for his money with all this hating. Uttering these harsh words, the reincarnated soul brings out a green wolf battleship and heads to High Sun City with Yu Rong. Roaming around in the air, Yun Xiao feels relieved that the strong forces have lowered their guards after the Qingyang family's demise, no longer keeping watch on his every movement. Soon, They arrive at their location and begin heading inside. Walking up the stairs to the residence, Yun Xiao glances back and catches Yurong staying further behind. While letting out a sigh, the former wonders if the latter is still sore from their earlier interaction, enraging him. Having already held himself back greatly, the geezer breaks his silence and questions why Yun Xiao insists on fussing over nothing. Literally looking down on Yurong from atop the stairs, the boy reprimands him for being stupid along with being weak. Once again, Yun Xiao doesn't forget to remind the old man that the Tianyuan Commerce Guild would have saved millions worth of resources if only he had been nice during their first meeting. To the reincarnated soul, Yurong following Ling'er because of his unyielding loyalty is really the only good thing about him. Pushed beyond the edge, the old servant lashes out and declares that Yun Xiao has no right to talk about him. Yurong also announces that the boy shouldn't think that he is clever. After all, everyone already knows that he wiped out the Qingyang family, leaving Martial Flame City awaiting impending doom. Being in a pretty good mood, Yun Xiao decides to entertain the old man's ramblings and notes that Ling'er would have been trying to cut off connections instead of inviting him to her residence if things were truly as he says. Since they aren't, it only means that the Tianyuan Commerce Guild's situation is more dire than expected, causing Ling'er to look to Yun Xiao as her only saving grace. The reincarnated soul goes even further beyond, concluding that the incident with the Qingyang family will only cause the girl to bet her life on him. Of course, he hits the nail right on the head, as Yurong doesn't argue and concedes the point. After glazing Ling'er a bit and hurling some more insults at the poor geezer, Yun Xiao announces that they aren't the ones helping him. Quite on the contrary, in fact, he is the one helping them for their survival. Chill, dude, he's already dead. The boy then threatens to walk away one day if the old man continues to act stupid, questioning who Ling'er would turn to. With this, the harsh realization hits Yurong. His young mistress is trying her hardest to remedy the Tianyuan Commerce Guild's precarious situation, but he only seems to keep making things worse. Overcome with guilt, the old man lowers his head. Right then, Ling'er comes marching there. Declaring that Yun Xiao is right, she asks Yurong to treat him like he treats her from now on. After all, the boy is a rare existence, like a diamond in the rough, so it's not worth fussing over small things when they have him by their side. Complimenting the girl's charming smile that washes away all his sorrows, Yun Xiao remarks that he listens to good people and heads inside with her. Witnessing the sight, Yurong laments his dumb and rash demeanor, feeling ashamed that Ling'er was forced to fix all his mistakes. Meanwhile, instead of taking Yun Xiao to the main hall, because it's too formal, the young mistress brings him to her private room. There she serves him some desserts and extremely high-quality iced tea, prompting Yun Xiao to rise her up, classic Li family style. Hearing the boy's words, Ling'er starts blushing. With her heart beating wildly, she looks down and lets out a soft smile. Quickly calming herself, the girl expresses curiosity about Yun Xiao's earlier statement. He mentioned that there weren't many other teas that could compare to the one she brought him. However, as far as Ling'er is aware, there shouldn't be anything at all that could compare to it. Even her father, who was a connoisseur of such rare teas, didn't mention anything in this regard. Turns out, Yun Xiao knows of at least 3 kinds of tea that are on par, if not better, than the one in his cup. First, a mysterious kind of blood tea from Crimson Crescent City. Brewed using a secret method, it looks, smells, and tastes like blood. Still, records show that the blood tea is sublime in its taste, comparable to the iced tea itself. Hearing this, Ling'er can't comprehend how anyone could bring themselves to drink blood like tea, even if it has an otherworldly taste. So, Yun Xiao decides to spare her the creepier details about the blood tea, particularly the fact that it requires human blood to grow and that the quality of its leaves depends on the cultivation level of the martial artist who bleeds for it. Who drinking this freaky tea, the reincarnated soul quickly moves on to the second type of tea that originates from the mystical fairy realm, a kind of green tea called eternal verdance. Having lived for 100,000 years, the leaves of this tea absorb qi from their luscious surroundings and developing into a rare treasure. Since eternal verdance is grown from a divine water source, it possesses great benefits for a martial artist's cultivation, body, and soul. This time, Ling'er starts bursting with excitement and questions if Yun Xiao has been to the mystical fairy realm. He quickly denies this claim, pretending to have heard about it somewhere. Mr. Habitual Liar strikes again. However, the girl isn't convinced, since the reminiscing look on Yun Xiao's face as he uttered those words painted another picture entirely, though she finds the alternative harder to believe. Curious about the third type of tea, Ling'er wonders if Yun Xiao saved the best for last. Turns out the last kind doesn't exist on the Tiawu continent at all. The former questions if this mysterious and rare top-tier tea is found in the four seas, but the latter reveals that he is talking about another place entirely, the exoteric space. According to Yun Xiao, above even the clouds themselves, the power of stars and moons will converge in a void of space within 9 days. This will give form to an eons-old existence, particularly a mess of voids in time. Collecting anything worthwhile from this mess is an extremely difficult task. As such, the resulting treasure, the Stardust Tea, is only possessed by those who somehow manage to acquire it, namely the Holy Region. Hearing the names of the three teas, Ling'er is overcome with a melodramatic feeling, considering even her very knowledgeable father didn't mention any of them to her. Womp womp lil sis, Yun Xiao gives the girl some nice words of encouragement, declaring that her innate sense of love and respect will grant her wishes in the future. This interaction leaves Ling'er completely stunned. After all, talking with the boy should have answered some of her questions, yet she continues to find him more mysterious with each passing moment. Yun Xiao's cultivation speed was already faster than any martial artist in history, which previously could have been chalked up to using some secret method or medicine with severe side effects. However, after thorough evaluation, Ling'er understands that the four quadrants realm energy he emits showcases a deeper understanding of martial arts than even herself. With this, the young mistress is convinced that there is no longer any need to question her plan involving Yun Xiao. Ao pause, glazing him a bit, for teaching her something new in their conversation. Ling'er mentions that she has some business with him today. Instead of being surprised or shocked, Yun Xiao continues to calmly sip his tea, making the girl wonder how he seems even foxier than century-old geezers. Regardless, Ling'er questions if the boy has heard of another place in Tiawu that is comparable to the mystical fairy realm in its beauty. Yun Xiao quickly guesses that she is talking about Mount Meru, and he is right on the mark as expected. With a grin across his face, the reincarnated soul notes that Mount Meru is one of the 5 mystic realms of Tiawu, created from the brilliant qi gathered within it. As such, it has come to be known as the dream abode for all martial artists. Bit surprised, Ling'er wonders if Yun Xiao also thinks that such a place was naturally formed. Turns out, he is of the view that Mount Meru wasn't created by an ancient being at all. Rather, in his opinion, all the 5 so-called mystic realms are merely major sects from ancient times that couldn't withstand the test of time. Drifting off into space, they eventually stabilized, coming to be known as the qi-abundant places they know as the 5 mystic realms today. Ling'er is shocked to hear that someone from the southern region like Yun Xiao is aware of this viewpoint, considering many high-level scholars share it. Of course, because of his past life, the boy already knows of this as an agreed-upon fact between superpowers. However, he doesn't seem to be aware of the fact that Mount Meru will be opening soon. As Ling'er mentions it, Yun Xiao gets startled for the first time in front of her, making her feel a sense of accomplishment. Capitalizing on the moment, the young mistress reveals that even though the exact time of the mystic realm's opening can't be predicted, there are certain signs that just can't be ignored. So, the southern region's 3 empires employed refiners to closely monitor the situation. According to them, Mount Meru will open in the Dusk Flame Empire in a month at the earliest and 3 at the latest. Unusually excited, Yun Xiao gets all up in the girl's face and wonders if the rest of Tiawu is as crazy as he is right now. Taken aback by this reaction, Ling'er informs him that it's actually the complete opposite, since Mount Meru's opening is old news by now. Bro is on a missing streak right now. Washed. However, all the superpowers are trying to find a way to get a piece of it. After all, a new batch of the world's greatest martial artists appears every time a mystic realm descends. In fact, all the famous and powerful people in Tiawu's history have reaped the benefits of at least one mystic realm. Yun Xiao knows this firsthand, as his perception arts came from the mystical fairy realm, without which he wouldn't have placed 3rd on the major power chart. Continuing her point, Ling'er remarks that the Holy Region's laws prevent the other regions from interfering whenever a mystic realm descends in a particular region. This is a blessing in disguise for the southern region. considering they wouldn't stand a chance against the other regions in a power struggle. The girl then asks her young master Yun his opinion on this information, getting told that it's a no-brainer at all. Since Mount Meru is opening, they, as people of the southern region, have no choice but to participate. Right then, it finally hits Yun Xiao that the reason for the Dusk Flame Empire's leniency toward martial Flame City was the Mystic Realm's descent. Smashing his fist into his palm, the boy is disappointed that he didn't act up more, as if wiping out the entire Qingyang family wasn't enough trouble for him. After the shenanigans, Yun Xiao questions why Ling'er invited him today, as relaying such information couldn't possibly have been the entire reason. Of course, he's right yet again. Aside from this preliminary information, the girl wants the boy to know the restrictions on Mount Meru's entry. Firstly, no one above the age of 50 is allowed to enter the Mystic Realm, meaning that the old experts from major sects won't be able to get in. So, at worst, their best competition upon entering will be martial kings or martial grandmasters. Secondly, as the Tianyuan Commerce Guild has obtained 2 places in Mount Meru, Ling'er wants Yun Xiao to enter with her. This statement surprises him, as there shouldn't be any restriction on the number of people that can enter a mystic realm. Bro is clueless right now. Feeling a bit mischievous, Ling'er teases the reincarnated soul for knowing some of the world's greatest secrets, but not being aware of facts that are practically common knowledge in the southern region. She questions if he is really even from there, but Yun Xiao insists that he is a Li family man through and through. In fact, Ling'er should know that better than anyone, considering there's no way she didn't do a clean background check on him. So he shrugs off the girl's remark and tells her to explain the other restriction as well. Meanwhile, Ling'er thinks about how they have tried to dig up dirt on Yun Xiao dozens of times, only to end up with nothing. Of course, the reincarnated soul not having any problems in his background is exactly the biggest problem for her. Anyway, Ling'er informs Yun Xiao that Mount Meru doesn't actually have an entry limit. However, the southern region's sects have agreements to decide entry ratios. This ensures that a single sect doesn't end up expanding too much from the mystic realm, hence maintaining the current stable power dynamic. As of right now, the 3 leading forces are the Dusk Flame Empire's Heaven Gathering sect, the Heaven Sent Empire's Thousand Crane Pavilion, and the Woodon Empire's Grim Reaper cult. This annoys Yun Xiao, who thinks that restricting such massive resources is exactly why the southern region is the weakest in Tiawu. After all, the unique opportunity to enter Mount Meru wouldn't have come to them, had it not been for the Holy Region's laws. Regardless, the reincarnated soul realizes that each of the 3 countries will struggle internally to acquire the entry spots for Mount Meru, and inquires about the quota. Turns out, every country is allowed to send 3,000 people, and the country in which the mystic realm descends gets another 1,000 entries. As such, the Dusk Flame Empire will have a quota of 4,000 people this time. Yun Xiao can't wrap his head around the meager figure of only 10,000 people participating from the entire southern region, prompting him to ask for more details about the distribution, all the while complaining about the Heaven Gathering sect's way of dictating things. According to Ling'er, the quota distribution amongst the various sects of a country depends on the collective agreement between their martial emperors and above. So the sects with higher cultivation levels are bound to snatch more places, and the rich get richer. Yun Xiao wonders if any force not having a martial emperor in their ranks will simply be barred from entry, getting told that it isn't entirely the case. Dude, can it catch a break? Girl really got my goat tripping like this. Although martial emperors will take 90% of the places, 5% of the spots will go to talented youths. To that end, the Dusk Flame Empire will hold a large martial arts competition soon. Split into 3 age groups, the youths that will showcase the most potential in their respective brackets will be granted the available places. As for the remaining 5%, the entry spots will be auctioned off. Since this means that 200 places will be up for grabs, Yun Xiao questions why the Tianyuan Commerce Guild can't just use its immense wealth to purchase a dozen or so spots. However, Ling'er assures him that buying open places for Mount Meru's entry will require more primordial stones than an entire sea can hold, a luxury that they cannot afford. Moreover, while the martial arts competition doesn't allow participants from those sects that have already been given places, the auction poses no such restriction. So a single spot can go for at least 1 million middle-tier primordial stones. Hearing this absurd figure, Yun Xiao is left in disbelief and ends up spitting out his tea. The world gotta be ending or something. Cousin Chapeau has gotten more shocked in these 2 chapters than he has in the entire series. He even suggests that Ling'er should just sell his spot and give him the money to spend, something that she ends up taking seriously. So, the reincarnated soul is forced to sit through a whole lecture about the importance of Mount Meru's opening from her. Classic mom move when you show her a meme. Yun Xiao quickly changes the topic and questions when the martial arts competition will begin, considering Ling'er will be able to win a place from that too. Praising the boy for his discerning eye, the young mistress claims that it wouldn't be hard to acquire a spot with her strength. Of course, she doesn't want to expose her capabilities just quite yet, considering Yun Xiao will easily be able to win a place by himself as well. The reincarnated soul simply smiles in response, fully understanding that entering Mount Meru or any other mystic realm is a dream come true for every martial artist. Getting the chance to do so in his second life as well, Yun Xiao refuses to let this amazing opportunity go to waste, especially since it's also the best way to quickly raise Martial Flame City's status and power as a whole. Just like that, the boy bids farewell to Ling'er and heads back, leaving her in bittersweet mood. Aboard his Green Wolf battleship, Yun Xiao notes that entering Mount Meru is a heaven-sent opportunity that is limited to everyone by quota. Well, everyone but him, since he can bring in as many people as he wants to the mystic realm using the World God Monument, as long as they are under the age of 50. History lesson time. Many years ago, a top expert from the Holy Region gathered Tia Wu's top refiners to make him a peak 9th tier spatial Xuan artifact. Although it wasn't as strong as the World God Monument, its capabilities were quite extraordinary, making it the strongest spatial Xuan artist in recorded history. Soon after, Mount Meru descended, giving the Holy Region's expert a bright idea. Hiding their entire sect in the peak 9th tier spatial Xuan artifact, they tried to smuggle themselves into the mystic realm. Unfortunately, Mount Meru's spatial power utterly shattered the spatial Xuan artist, exterminating every martial artist inside above the age of 50. However, those under 50 entered the mystic realm completely unharmed. The Holy Region's top martial expert was also hidden in the spatial Xuan artifact, suffering heavy injuries, since they were spiritually connected with it. Using their incredible strength, the martial artist tore apart space itself to escape back home, only for their efforts to prove in vain. Seemingly possessing a soul of their own, Mount Meru's encryptions crossed dimensions to chase the martial expert into the Holy Region's capital, killing them in front of many peak martial artists. After that incident, no one ever tried sending anyone above the age of 50 into the mystic realm again. Of course, Yun Xiao himself isn't sure if the most important point is the age itself, or the fact that Mount Meru doesn't support such artifacts. After all, if the peak 9 tier spatial Xuan artifact was the thing that triggered the encryptions, even the World God Monument wouldn't be able to withstand them. If it was just about his own cultivation, the reincarnated soul would never risk sacrificing the World God Monument. However, with Martial Flame City's strength as a whole on the line, it is a risk he is willing to take. As long as Yun Xiao can bring in thousands of people inside Mount Meru using it, he is willing to accept the destruction of his beloved World God Monument. Ah, my selfless and noble king. With this resolve, the boy arrives at Martial Flame City's Pill Tower, as the soul chi inside the World God Monument won't support his allies' cultivation for long without the 9 Dragons' soul absorption array. Yun Xiao seals everything together inside it. His forehead then erupts into a golden glow, bringing the process to competition by putting the World God Monument into his sea of consciousness. Witnessing this sight, Du-an Yue and the Star Mansion Sect's 4 refiners are left in utter disbelief. The geezer can't comprehend how an indestructible pill tower that withstood the attacks of a martial emperor can vanish into thin air so easily. Together with the quartet, he comes to an immaculate conclusion. Yun Xiao must have eaten the pill tower. Not even bothering to entertain this rubbish, the reincarnated soul suddenly congratulates Du-an Yue for becoming a 3-star martial emperor. This leaves the geezer in more horror than shock, as Yun Xiao is right on the money, but still insists that he only guessed as much due to context clues. Sherlock Holmes, at your service, sire. In the end, Du-an Yue stops struggling against the boy's unmatched wits and comes to peace with the fact that he will never be him as long as Yun Xiao is around. While the geezer blissfully celebrates his newfound enlightenment, the boy instructs the 4 refiners to relax and not resist his universal detect. Just like that, Yun Xiao transports them to the World God Monument as well, making Du-an Yue think that he is eating people now. Realizing that there's no limit to how low the old Git's intelligence can fall, the reincarnated soul tells him to hurry up and just follow along. A few hours later, the duo arrives at the Supreme High Palace to borrow it for a while. Before they can get off their Green Wolf battleship, Yun Xiao gets reprimanded by someone for daring to mess around in the 100 Sword sect. Unfazed, the boy easily avoids the attack and crashes the floating battleship right into the rude guy. Writhing in agony, the 100 Sword sect member screams out, threatening to kill him for his crime. Meanwhile, Duan Yue mocks Yun Xiao for his terrible driving skills, just not in the way one would think. Instead of crushing the dude's legs, the geezer thinks that the reincarnated soul should have crushed his annoying mouth under the Green Wolf battleship instead. Of course, Yun Xiao was going to go a step further and originally intended to kill the guy with the crash for insolently swinging his sword at them. However, he spared the dude's life for being an old acquaintance. Yun Xiao's attempt at vehicular manslaughter gets interrupted by the fact that the rude guy has an old face he recognizes, making Duan Yue curious. Right then, some of the dude's underlings come running up to him and start asking stupid questions like if he is alright or not. Suddenly, it clicks for the guy, and he recognizes Yun Xiao as the supposed disciple of the Sky Locust sect. The boy lets out a villainous grin, mocking the old face for being as stylish as ever. Does anyone remember who this is? Not us. As the rude guy rages at Yun Xiao, his underlings, the 3 jacks of the Oso Mighty 100 Sword sect, rush to remedy the situation. Of course, the reincarnated soul makes quick work of them with his ocular technique. While Yun Xiao plays around and labels the 100 Sword sect's welcoming methods as unique, Duan Yue seems shaken up. Turns out, the former unleashed the earlier mental attack indiscriminately in all directions, even affecting the latter. Despite being a 7-star martial grandmaster in his sealed state, the geezer felt like his head was going to split open. Another history lesson time. Reaching the top 10 ranks of the major power chart not only required that martial artists reach their peak prowess, but they also needed to have unique and powerful techniques to back their reputations. As for Gu Feiyang, the secret arts he relied on to enter the top 10 are specialized mental attacking arts, known as moon set arts. These techniques allow him to utilize the power of his soul and spirit via his eyes to attack those with spirit power lower than his own. Of course, this transfers over to Yun Xiao, who reigns supreme in spirit power in this new life as a former 9 Heavens realm martial sovereign. As of right now, the boy's spirit power has risen to the level of a 4th-tier Lord class refiner, causing the moon set arts to show a glimpse of their true glory at last. Spoiling the party, the familiar rude face starts going on about how the sect master will make Yun Xiao regret messing with their 100 Sword sect once he finishes his meeting in the Grand Hall. Hearing this, the reincarnated soul questions why the guy insists on calling their current location the land of the 100 Sword sect. After all, the Supreme High Palace isn't theirs to occupy, even if all its residents are scattered. Right then, a voice shouts out, announcing that Yun Xiao is definitely right. This is the Daybreak Sect Master and a 1-star Martial Grandmaster, Yuan Wei. He reveals that his sect rented out the Qi Veins around the Supreme High Palace to the Hundreds Word sect, but will now be taking them back, seeing as it is empty. Suddenly, another voice calls him out for his BS, belonging to the Nun Aspect Sect Master named Guan Buzai, also a 1-star Martial Grandmaster. Following him, yet another 1-star Martial Grandmaster called Lu Wuman appears to lay claim to the Supreme High Palace on behalf of his first Sky Sect. Lastly, Xiao Guan, having the same cultivation level as the men before, shows up, like goats to a slaughter. Being the 100 Sword Sect Master, he demands Yun Xiao to release his son. Continuing to stomp down on the rude guy, the reincarnated soul questions if the distance from the Qi-filled mountain of the Supreme High Palace's Qi-filled mountain is all that it takes to make it theirs. The 4 sect masters insist that it's only natural that way, but Yun Xiao isn't convinced. After all, if that is how things truly work, then the Qi Vein mountains of all their sects are in the range of Martial Flame City. Realizing the greedy implications of what he is saying, the quartet collectively rages at the boy. Soon enough, they recognize him as the Martial Flame City Lord, who wiped out the Qingyang family, Li Yun Xiao. So instead of being hostile, the 4 sect masters start glazing him to get on his good side. At the same time, Xiao Guang begs Yun Xiao to let go of his son, before continuing the conversation. Of course, the reincarnated soul is anything but kind, and swiftly removes the Green Wolf battleship from the arrogant guy's legs. expressing surprise at the fact that 4 sects like them are fighting over such a decrepit place. Yun Xiao offers Guan Buzai, Yuan Yuan Wei, Lu Wu Man, and Xiao Guang to join his martial flame city. The underlying meaning fills all of them with horror, and they rush to return to their respective sects, leaving the dispute unsettled. However, Yun Xiao isn't willing to let them go quite yet. Although he doesn't want to force them to join Martial Flame City, the boy doesn't want to make up the cost of his recent feud with the Qingyang family. Yun Xiao feels that fate has brought them all together so that he can borrow some primordial stones from them, a statement that the 4 sect masters try to dismiss as a joke. However, the reincarnated soul is extremely serious at the moment and gives them an ultimatum. If they truly see him as a friend, each of them is to lend him 50,000 middle-tier primordial stones. Otherwise, it simply means that he isn't their friend. Extortion, his middle name. With these words, Yun Xiao lets rip his moonset arts. Exerting intense spirit power on the 1-star martial grandmasters, the reincarnated soul once again questions if they would prefer joining Martial Flame City or simply giving him the 50,000 middle-tier primordial stones as a token of their friendship. Of course, he doesn't mind ending their friendship right that moment if the sect masters don't think it's worth even that much. Realizing that their lives will be gone along with this supposed friendship too, the quartet gives in to the blatant scam and quickly pays up. After thanking them for their generosity, Yun Xiao announces that he will be using the Supreme High Palace temporarily anyway. Permitting the 4 sect masters to leave, he bids them farewell. Afterward, Duan Yue wonders why the boy is so greedy, considering he is not only a city lord, but also has the backing of the 1,000 Treasures Tower. Denying that he possesses such backing entirely like he is being interrogated, Yun Xiao lets Duan Yue in on a little secret. Turns out, because of his body tempering techniques, the reincarnated soul requires a 10-fold or even a 100-fold number of primordial stones to advance, as compared to other martial artists. I would pay attention in class if my teachers drew diagrams like this. Back to the topic, Yun Xiao realized this fact when he soaked up almost the entire soul power of the Congo Divine Tree, only to end up going by just a single realm. If any normal martial artist consumed such an immense amount of soul power, they would have advanced to the martial grandmaster or even an emperor level. Sighing out in disappointment, Yun Xiao laments that he truly has to go one step at a time. Of course, the boy also wishes that there was a way to ask Ao Chan Kong how he became a peak 9-star martial sovereign. Did the tyrant truly possess the toughest body, or was he just drowning in primordial stones? Guess we will never know. Since such resource-intensive powers are only utilized by superpowers in Tita Wu, Duan Yue questions if Yu Xiao is one of their disciples. However, the boy insists that none of them would take him either way and brings out the Green Wolf battleship. Soaring through the air, Yu Xiao spreads out his universal detect, soon finding the Qi-filled mountain's most valuable spot. Just like that, he brings out the World God Monument to begin laying the foundations for his next grand scheme. As Yun Xiao brings out the condensed World God Monument, it crashes into the ground and starts digging deep inside. Soon, the rectangular structure erupts, transforming into a magnificent, glowing tree. While Duan Yue tries to wrap his head around what's going on, Yun Xiao realizes that he didn't even need to activate the 9 Dragons Soul Absorption Array this time, making him wonder if other arrays can also be used like this by setting them up in the World God Monument. The implication of this greatly excites Yun Xiao, as it would mean that he now possesses a moving fortress that can continuously grow stronger. At the same time, Duan Yue tries his best to spoil this moment of realization by asking stupid questions like how the Black Tower suddenly turned into a tree. Wait, let bro cook for once. Not letting the geezer ramble any longer, Yu Xiao forcefully drags him into the World God Monument. This being his first time there, Duan Yue aggressively starts rubbing his eyes to make sure that he isn't dreaming. After all, within the tiny stone monument they entered moments earlier, there now lies an endless expanse, meaning that this is a real spatial Yuan artifact containing a spiritual plane. Yun Xiao compliments the geezer for being knowledgeable on the matter, considering even refiners might not know about the existence of such things. While Duan Yue literally turns to stone in shock, the reincarnated soul gives him a lecture on the long history of spatial Yuan artifacts within Tita Wu, their relation with the 5 mystic realms, and even more details on why they share no similarities with mere storage Shuan artifacts. Not caring that the poor geezer is literally crumbling from the overstimulation, the boy nonchalantly picks up his broken pieces and kindly reconstructs him. As Yun Xiao picks up his shattered head, Duan Yue finally speaks up for once, still unable to believe that he is inside a true spatial Shuan artifact. Dude got too enforced now, he might be beating Goku though. Just kidding, my kittens. No one beating Goku, even with a move called Beats Goku. Anyways, it was tens of thousands of years ago when the expert Bai Li Zun gathered Tia Wu's entire power to refine the spatial Shuan artifact, Heaven's Arc. However, unlike Duan Yue's head, which quickly lashed back onto his neck, Heaven's Arc couldn't recover after getting destroyed while entering Mount Meru. In fact, its destruction caused generations of refiners to argue about its status as a spatial Shuan artifact entirely. Still, there is no doubt in Duan Yue's mind that the place they are in is a true spatial Shuan artifact, something that he has only heard of in rumors. Not responding to Yun Xiao's praise about being well-read on the matter, the geezer sniffs around like an excited dog, and soon recognizes that they aren't in Heaven's Arc, meaning that there's a second spatial Shuan artifact on the Tia Wu continent. Despite feeling a bit sad that he never got to witness Heaven's Arc in person before, Yun Xiao assures Duan Yue that the tier of his world god monument is above that of its predecessor spatial Shuan artifact. However, the actual kicker is the fact that he still doesn't possess the strength to refine such a treasure completely, only managing to link his mind with it. With these words, Yun Xiao starts moving out. Before leaving, he instructs Duan Yue to stay inside the World God Monument to cultivate, since the 9 Dragons' soul absorption array will provide him with an exponentially greater amount of soul chi than outside. Of course, the geezer is more focused on how Yun Xiao just casually floated away. Realizing that the boy's very word is law there, Duan Yue recognizes him as the greatest being within the World God Monument. Meanwhile, Yun Xiao comes to understand that he has gained more enlightenment from his experiences in the South Sea and prepares to take a closer look at the legendary treasure. Releasing all of his primordial stones, Yun Xiao shatters them into Shuan dust and establishes a creation link to absorb it. The amount of energy currently flowing into him would have caused a normal 1-star martial lord's body to implode a while ago. However, no matter how much Yuan Qi flows into his Dan Tian, it doesn't get filled up, almost as if it were a bottomless pit. The plot armor goes crazy. This trading process makes Yun Xiao realize that Tyrant Marshal Sovereign Ao Chang Kong wasn't in first place on the major power charts merely because of his luck. After all, with the amount of Yuan Qi one needs to cultivate the Tyrant body tempering technique to the peak of the 9 Heavens realm, 100 martial artists could break through to it. Of course, the fruit these hard efforts will bear is sweeter than anything in the world, so Yun Xiao exerts himself greatly, edging ever closer to acquiring the immortal golden body. Dude is always edging. When will it be time to goon, looking on from far away? Duan Yue realizes that the boy's future achievements might as well be beyond his achievements. Even with its lengthy history and countless experts, the Tia Wu realm will record Yun Xiao's name and forever etch it in its books. At the same time, the reincarnated soul reaches the next stage of enlightenment, reforming one's entire being via the body of glass, evolving it to draw out the extreme strength hidden inside via the unyielding tyrant body, and then building upon these foundations to achieve an immortal body, shredding everything in one's way. The tyrant body tempering technique makes Yun Xiao question if the martial artists throughout history ever even cultivated correctly in their entire lives by training only in Qi. After all, a martial artist's body is supposed to be an infinite treasury that contains unparalleled strength, just like the constellations. Spirit, body, and Qi. All 3 are great treasures, training each of which to the limit separately can bless a martial artist with logic-defined prowess. However, here lay Yun Xiao, cultivating all 3 at the same time. As tough as his current path, it might just be the way for him to go beyond his past life to reach the 10 ultimate realm. Right then, another realization hits him. If all techniques were originally one, then is there even a difference between the tyrant body tempering technique and refining artifacts? Turns out, there isn't any at all. At this moment, Yun Xiao's body resonates with some sort of world-changing law, making him understand that Ao Chang Kong's immortal golden body is simply Shuan artifact refined using the world as a tripod, and his body as a mold. Bro burned down the kitchen to create a 5-star meal. Moments later, Yun Xiao breaks through to become a 2-star martial lord and comes in contact with a type of law, silently working above his cultivation space. Captivated by the glow, the reincarnated soul quickly rushes to examine it, finding himself surrounded by the power of laws, or rather a godly realm technique. Although the text is similar to the godly evolution technique that gave Gu Feiyang a second chance at life, isn't the same at all, shocking him greatly. In legends, there are some supreme laws that cannot be written into words, and hence are contained within entire worlds. Despite getting crushed by these laws at the moment, Yun Xiao lets out a wide grin. If what he thinks is correct, if these golden tadpole words are really used to describe the supreme laws, then fate has brought him to his second godly evolution technique. Releasing his unyielding tyrant physique to prevent himself from getting crushed by the supreme laws, Yun Xiao realizes that understanding them is the key to fully connecting his soul with the world god monument. Even in this dire situation, the reincarnated soul smiles, still in disbelief that training in Ao Chang Kong's body tempering technique caused the very scriptures containing the higher rules of the world to appear before him. And so Yun Xiao begins reciting the tadpole-like words, suffering great toll on his body. Moments later, he coughs out an immense amount of blood. With this, the reincarnated soul confirms once and for all that it's the exact same type of divine scripture as the godly evolution technique. As such, reading it with just language is almost impossible, considering the unyielding tyrant physique is failing against it. However, Yun Xiao also recognizes that he will probably never get another chance to witness the supreme laws again. So the boy convinces himself that his sea of consciousness, which contains the godly evolution technique, should also be able to withstand another godly realm technique. Brimming with resolve, Yun Xiao begins imprinting the divine scripture into his consciousness, only for him to get utterly overwhelmed. Plot armor.exe has stopped working. Absorbing every word it sees, the golden glow on his forehead runs rampant. No longer possessing the strength necessary to withstand the power of laws, Yun Xiao gets crushed by the pressure of the cubicle prison. A deafening silence descends in the area, and some time passes just like that. However, the cubicle prison harboring the power of laws soon emerges, forced open by the boy's sea of consciousness. Surrounded by the tadpole-like words, Yun Xiao falls through the air, realizing that he is hearing the sound of the divine scripture of evolution, the exact one that gave him his memories back after his reincarnation. Overcome with this sensation, the boy is left questioning if he died again, or heck, if he ended up reincarnating again. After all, the blood raining down from the sky is most definitely his own. Moments later, though, the terrible fatigue and pain overwhelming Yun Xiao's body disappears and turns into spirit power, getting as high as that on the 5th tier refiner. Collecting himself, the reincarnated soul gathers both the godly realm technique and the godly evolution techniques in his sea of consciousness. Never mind then, plot armor's still here. At the same time, he wonders if these divine scriptures were left behind by a 10th ultimate realm martial artist, despite the fact that nothing about such an expert has ever been recorded in Tiawu's history. What's even more baffling is how Yun Xiao managed to obtain 2 supreme laws in such a short time. Right then, something grave catches the boy's attention, forcing him to leave all these questions for later. Yun Xiao quickly appears at the Supreme High Palace, finding Qi Zunzi and his underlings there, all confused about where everyone else went, confirming that the extreme Yin Frost Qi belongs to the same ragtag bunch he sent scurrying off a while back. The reincarnated soul kindly greets the group and questions where they secluded themselves to avoid the massive tragedy. The boy is actually interested for once, considering his universal detect wasn't able to reach them in their hiding spot. Ignoring Yun Xiao's questions, Qi Zunzi rages out, vowing to take back the true Phoenix's flames from him. The 4th tier refiner, Hu Yangming, calms him down and reminds the geezer that Yun Xiao needs to be alive for their purpose. Coming to his senses, the old martial grandmaster unleashes his qi. Lightning buzzes wildly as Qi Zunzi thanks Yun Xiao for coming to them so easily. Standing his ground, the latter informs the former that the Supreme High Palace is his now. So, if anything, the geezer is the one coming to him. With these words, the boy unleashes his Tiger Fang sword, stopping Qi Zunzi's attack right in its tracks. Witnessing this might, the 1-star martial grandmaster is left questioning how a 9-star martial master can become a martial lord in mere months. Yi Xiaoshan wonders the same thing, while Hu Yanming tries to cope and chalks up the otherworldly cultivation speed to the true fire of life. The group demands that Yun Xiao return their flames, promising to forget their past if he complies, Dudes really think that they are in a position to bargain, Delulu. Right then, Duan Yue pops out of the World God Monument, complaining that the boy called just when his training was getting good. The geezer questions who they are fighting this time. Duan Yue's arrival leaves the enemies frozen in fear, as the power he emits suppresses even Qi Zunzi completely. While the one-star martial grandmaster tries to hold a conversation with his fellow geezer, Hu Yanming, being a curious fourth-tier refiner, seems more interested in how Duan Yue just popped out of a Yuan artifact. So he kicks a backseat, while Qi Zunzi has a little back and forth with the opposition. As their talks progress, Yun Xiao implies that he doesn't need really backup to beat the one-star martial grandmaster. Offended by this remark, Qi Zunzi grits his teeth in anger. Duan Yue is also confused, wondering how Yun Xiao intends to bridge the two realms' difference between him and Qi Zunzi. Of course, he keeps this to himself. Right then, Hu Yanming speaks up, promising to aid Duan Yue if he doesn't interfere in the fight. Of course, the geezer has no interest in a fourth-tier refiner and tells him to get lost, especially since a certain someone beside him managed to increase his spirit power to the 5th tier level. Being under the impression that Duan Yue is just a 7 constellations realm martial grandmaster, Hu Yanming questions how he dares to anger a respected 4th-tier refiner. At the same time, he recognizes that the geezer isn't faking the reaction and cleverly decides to pipe down. Qi Zunzi doesn't shut up though, and reiterates his plan to capture the little thief known as Li Yun Xiao. While Duan Yue laughs at his stubbornness, the reincarnated soul proposes a bet. Qi Zunzi refuses at first, but soon ends up falling for it anyway. And so Yun Xiao confidently presents very fair terms. Throughout the duration, Duan Yue wouldn't be allowed to make any moves, English or Spanish. However, the one-star martial master will be able to do whatever he wants to take the boy down. If the old git succeeds in doing so, he will have the true phoenix as flames. However, if Qi Zunzi fails, he, Hu Yanming, and Yi Xiaoshan will all have to follow Yun Xiao for the rest of their lives. Qi Zunzi gets offended that Yun Xiao dares to challenge him one-on-one, while Hu Yanming takes offense to the fact that the boy isn't qualified enough for them to follow him. Meanwhile, Yi Xiaoshan smartly maintains his silence, since they don't instantly accept. Yun Xiao resorts to provoking the enemy's pride. Of course, it works like a charm, just to be certain. Qi Zunzi asks Duan Yue if he truly won't interfere in the bet. The geezer turns to Yun Xiao for a signal, only to see him standing proudly without a shred of fear, declaring that he won't interfere, since both sides have agreed. Duan Yue starts heading back to the World God Monument. However, he does threaten to make Qi Zunzi and the others pay without mercy if they go back on their word after losing the bet. With both sides bearing witness to each other's words, the competition officially begins with a bit of back and forth trash talk. Then, Yun Xiao launches the first attack. Blowing into his tiger finger sword, the reincarnated soul literally gives wind to a ferocious beast, sending it roaring toward the enemy. Acknowledging that Yun Xiao's strike possesses power far beyond the capability of a martial lord, Qi Zunzi decides to not take it lightly and blocks with a barrier of extreme yin frost qi, still thinking that the force behind the boy's attacks is only because of the true phoenix's flames. The one-star martial grandmaster resolves to capture him and acquire all the benefits for himself. Dissipating the tiger fang sword's blow with ease, Qi Zunzi declares that his extreme strength will overcome whatever heaven-defying techniques Yun Xiao possesses. Unleashing his extreme yin frost qi, the former insists that the latter surrenders with his life intact. Even Duan Yue is worried, as the chilling aura being emitted by Qi Zunzi leaves him questioning his own ability to overcome such yin frost qi if they were in the same realm. This old dude really don't got that dog in him. However, Yun Xiao is built differently and rushes headfirst to strike the enemy down. Continuing to talk down on the boy, Qi Zunzi unleashes a barrage of icicles and the like. Since they are all made out of yin frost qi, the reincarnated soul is forced to dodge them with swift movements, and even gets complimented for it. Unfortunately, Qi Zunzi declares them to be useless, and condenses his extreme frost true qi, finally backing Yun Xiao into a corner. The boy leaps, skids, and practically runs through the air, but it is all in vain. Announcing that this bout is boring, since he hasn't even warmed up yet, the one-star martial grandmaster instructs Yun Xiao not to act so foolishly in the future, and restrains him in a prison of ice. He also self-proclaims himself as the victor of the bet, only for the reincarnated soul to devilishly grin at him from inside the entrapment. Unleashing his tyrant-unyielding physique and enhancing it with wings, made out of the true soul phoenix's flames on his back, Yun Xiao emerges from the ice prison, unscathed and unharmed. Mocking Qi Zunzi's earlier remark, the boy feels bored that he fell for such a basic trap and decides to help him warm up. With this, Yun Xiao gives the one-star martial grandmaster just a taste of the true fire of life. Qi Zunzi activates his extreme frost true qi, ice shard armor to shield himself, freezing the entire area. However, just a slight twinge of the true fire of life burns everything but the platform he is standing on. Witnessing this sight, Hu Yangming loses his mind and concludes that Yun Xiao has managed to refine the phoenix's flames, unaware that he still has quite a long way to go. As they say, fake it till you make it. Meanwhile, Qi Zunzi no longer has his ice shard armor protecting him, and he is forced to just stand helplessly as Yun Xiao charges at him. Of course, the reincarnated soul takes full advantage of the situation and unleashes his Tiger Fang sword, Lotus Sword Song, bringing down the one-star martial grandmaster. Everyone is left in awe at the scene, particularly Duan Yue. After all, it's his first time seeing Yun Xiao fight for real. His first impression? Well, someone who fights like he has gone through hundreds of battles, achieving a level of battle IQ that no martial artist can obtain just by training in seclusion. Brought to his knees, Qi Zunzi refuses to accept defeat and screams out. The entire scenery around the geyser changes as the bell of mountains and rivers appears above him. Since the item was a treasure stolen from the Supreme High Palace, Hu Yangming is infuriated. Even more so, since the then Palace Master investigated the matter for months on end, only to end up wrongfully destroying the cultivation bases of countless martial artists in the process. On the other hand, Yun Xiao picks up a magnifying glass and closely starts examining the treasure. Nodding his head like a disappointed doctor in a TV show, the reincarnated soul informs Qi Zunzi that his treasure is nothing but a cheap imitation. The one-star martial grandmaster is caught so off guard that he ends up getting hurt by the boy's words and begs him to conduct a re-examination, soon realizing who he's talking to. While Yun Xiao mischievously backs off, Qi Zunzi loses all semblance of how to act and almost demonetizes us. Thankfully, his rage swiftly switches back to the boy, and he aggressively starts ringing his totally real bell, aiming to shake the mountains and rivers with each toll. As the bell of mountains and river rings, the ground erupts. Everyone starts panicking, except Yun Xiao. Of course, complimenting the treasure for still possessing such great power, despite being a counterfeit, the reincarnated soul marches towards it. Meanwhile, Qi Zunzi musters up all the strength in his old bones to slam the bell as quickly and forcefully as he can, sending wild shockwaves in all directions. Even his own allies, Hu Yangming and Yi Xiaoshan, aren't safe from its effects and suffer greatly. Duan Yue also grits his teeth, albeit bearing it with great gusto, so as to not show any struggle on his wrinkled face, laughing maniacally. Qi Zunzi reveals that the bell of mountains and rivers attacks a person's mind directly, along with their qi veins. The old man is convinced that as long as he is in possession of the treasure, even stronger enemies can't win against him. Unfortunately for the geezer, normal rules don't apply to Yun Xiao. Casually walking amidst the crushing pressure with his eyes closed, he starts reciting the divine scriptures, surrounding himself with a glowing barrier. Against the reincarnated soul's powerful soul and hardened body, the tolling bell's specialized attacks turn into pure garbage. Turns out, Qi Zunzi could have defeated Yun Xiao if he utilized all his true qi and attacked him through complete martial realm suppression. Unfortunately, the geezer stupidly decided to use the one attack that gave his enemy the most advantage against him. Petitioned to do an IQ check before making someone a martial grandmaster. Floating around in the air, Yun Xiao notes that Qi Zunzi is expending a lot of true qi every time he rings the bell. On the other hand, the sound of its vibrations only swells and expands his own true qi. Unaware of this fact, the one-star martial grandmaster mocks Yun Xiao, declaring that there is no way for a four-quadrants realm martial artist to beat him. Qi Zunzi is still under the impression that Yun Xiao's body and soul will disintegrate under his bell's power, as it's crushing everything and everyone around it without discrimination. Soon, the geezer exhausts all of his true qi and stops ringing the bell. When the dust settles, everyone on the battlefield is on their knees, huffing and puffing wildly. On the other hand, Yun Xiao sits calmly in a meditating pose, devoid of any emotion. The air around him is so tranquil that Qi Zunzi is left questioning if his entire soul got blown away, as he starts wondering if the true phoenix's flames will remain intact after the death of the boy's soul. Yun Xiao's entire being erupts with multicolored waves of qi. Since the situation is still unclear, Qi Zunzi makes a wise decision for the first time in their altercation and stays away from the devious brat for now. Soon, Yun Xiao's qi settles down. Much to the dismay of everyone present, he breaks through to become a 3-star martial lord. Duan Yue is the one most offended by this, as the little liar gave him a whole lecture about how hard it will be to rank up in cultivation from now on, just a few chapters ago. Instead, he ends up going from 1 star to 3-star in mere days. While Duan Yue jumps around like a mad ape, Yu Xiao calmly observes himself. Turns out, this development is something even he did not expect. Sure, buddy, we totally trust you. Of course, it was bound to happen, due to the recent series of events, accumulating an unbelievable amount of qi from the Kungo Divine Tree, followed by securing the Godly Realm technique, and topping it all off with the stimulation from the ringing of the counterfeit bell of mountains and rivers. It would have been weird if Yun Xiao didn't break through. The author would definitely be a W lawyer with the way he justifies these power-ups. He always cooks. However, he doesn't let Qi Zunzi get a whiff of any of that. Rubbing it into him, the boy gleefully thanks the geezer for helping him advance. This patronizing remark causes the 1-star martial grandmaster to pull his hair so hard that he ends up slamming himself into the fake treasure. Yi Xiaoshan and Hu Yanming start asking questions as well, considering the Bell of Mountains and Rivers is hard to fend off for even martial kings and grandmasters. To break through a star because of it is something unheard of in Tita Wu's history. For this exact reason, Qi Zunzi goes utterly insane. Lifting the bell, he decides to crush Yun Xiao with pure brute force and dubs the tasteless move, blockade of all mountain and rivers. While the geezer's own allies retreat, the boy doesn't move an inch from his spot and seemingly gets eradicated. Duan Yue starts panicking only to calm down moments later upon noticing something curious. The weird giant tree, half of the world god monument, has vanished into thin air. Meanwhile, Qi Zunzi musters up his remaining strength to violently ring the bell of mountains and rivers, all the while repeatedly screaming at Yun Xiao to die. Returning the favor in kind, the boy begins to bang the bell from inside the entrapment. Qi Zunzi deems his struggles to be fruitless, as the treasure is a 7th-tier Shuan weapon. So, unless Yun Xiao has something equal to it in his possession, giving up would be the easier way to go out. Once again, though, Qi Zunzi is completely wrong in his assessment. Just moments later, the counterfeit bell of mountains and rivers shatters to pieces. The geezer's allies foolishly accuse him of breaking the treasure, instantly getting told to shut up. Rightfully so too, because Qi Zunzi couldn't possibly perform such a feat in his current state. Lo and behold, it was all Yun Xiao and the world god monument in his hands. Desperate to know more about the Shuan weapon that somehow broke the bell of mountains and rivers without so much as a scratch on itself, Hu Yanming begins asking questions again. Of course, the reincarnated soul has yet another surprise in store for the 4th-tier refiner. Reciting the ancient divine scriptures, Yu Xiao gives form to the tadpole-like words and wraps them around the world god monument, leaving Hu Yanming in utter disbelief. With this, the small rectangular structure in the boy's hands starts to expand, increasing exponentially in size. The gigantic world god monument locks down the entire space surrounding Qi Zunzi, making it impossible for him to avoid his impending fate. Just like that, Yun Xiao seals the geezer's fate with his own brutish methods, making him the first recorded victim of the world god monument. The unbelievable scene of a martial lord crushing a martial grandmaster to death without breaking so much as a sweat and acting like he did nothing impressive afterward leaves the onlookers questioning reality. If Yu Xiao can defeat someone as powerful as Qi Zunzi in such a manner, do the martial artist rankings even make sense anymore? Seeing the 4-star martial lord in action, the entire meaning of what it means to truly cultivate has forever changed for the spectators. Dude out here making everyone else look like town hall rushers. Still in awe, Duan Yue hurriedly catches up to Yun Xiao, questioning if Qi Zunzi is really dead. Instead of answering with words, the reincarnated soul pulls the world god monument back inside his sea of consciousness to let the geezer see for himself. Yi Xiao Shan and Hu Yangming join in as well, and the three stand together to peer into the vast rectangular crater left behind by the World God Monument. At its bottom lies the one-star martial grandmaster who died so helplessly that his body has been reduced to nothing but rupee paste of flesh. Of course, this doesn't stop Yun Xiao from taking his storage ring for himself. Despite everything they have been through together, Duan Yue finds this disgusting act to be a new low, even for the boy, shamelessly putting the storage ring in his shirt anyway. Yun Xiao reiterates that he is an oh-so-poor city lord who needs all the resources he can get. This reminds Duan Yue to throw a tantrum about how the boy lied to him about the difficulty he will face in breaking through from now on, only to advance by 2 stars in mere days. Vowing to never trust Yun Xiao again, the geezer stomps off. Completely ignoring his ramblings, the reincarnated soul steps up to Yi Xiao Shan and Hu Yangming, questioning if they want his true fire of life as well. Since they are too stunned to reply, Yun Xiao gives them 2 choices to ease their worries. It's pretty straightforward, actually. The 2 can either submit to him or simply die. And so, Yi Xiao Shan and Hu Yangming swear their loyalty to Yun Xiao, getting sent to the World God Monument where he is the mightiest existence. The 4th-tier refiner is assigned to Square Inch Mountain to refine pills, while the 8-star Martial King gets placed at its Soul Chi Center to concentrate on his cultivation. Upon arriving at his destination, Yi Xiao Shan comes across Xiao Qing Wan, who has left him in the dust to become a 2-star Martial Grandmaster. Later, the 2 former mortal enemies sit together, sharing a drink over the ever-changing, unpredictable nature of the world that has led them to this point. Yi Xiao Shan calls for a toast, celebrating that the next time they bare their fists at each other will not be on the battlefield, but in a spar. Frubia interaction, but we move. While this new friendship blossoms, Yun Xiao informs Duan Yue that he's going to Verdant Seaport to take care of the Green Phoenix battleship. The former wonders if the latter will join him or stay in the World God Monument to cultivate. Of course, the geezer is too high on the treasure to leave so soon and decides to keep cultivating. However, he does worry that the Yuan Qi inside the World God Monument is slowly dispersing, without a new source of soul Qi to replace it. Yun Xiao thinks that's natural though, since a spatial Yuan artifact couldn't possibly replace the grand world they live in. Since the World God Monument nourishes itself by absorbing resources from its surroundings, the amount of soul Qi required for its maintenance is beyond comprehension. As the 9 Dragons Soul Absorption Array has already sucked all the soul veins within 300 miles of Martial Flame City dry, Yun Xiao decides that he will kick out all the leeches once his standing in the Dusk Flame Empire is solidified. Meanwhile, Duan Yue is left wondering just which ancient power could have refined the World God Monument, accepting it as a better artifact than Heaven's Ark. Many days later at Verdant Seaport, Yun Xiao uses his connection with 1,000 Treasures Tower Elder to extort 1,000,000 middle-tier primordial stones without any hiccups. Curiously enough, countless rumors still float around about the 1,000 Crane Pavilion's involvement with the Star Mansion sect's demise in the city. Most of these, however, are worries about what would happen if the Star Mansion sect's main forces, the 9 Heavens Realm Martial Sovereigns, were to cross over to the southern region. Unbothered by these whispers, Yun Xiao meets with a mysterious, hooded, hunched-up figure who soon reveals himself to be the Thunderwind Commerce Guild Guildmaster, Shang Guan Tia. Since they are willing to take any business deal, the boy questions if a customer can also request for certain secrets to be kept. Shang Guan Tia confirms that it depends on the payment, prompting Yun Xiao to take him to repair a battleship. Quickly enough, the 2 arrive at the hidden island, where Yun Xiao unseals the concealment array to reveal the Green Phoenix battleship. It is then that the realization hits Shang Guan Tia. He's gotten involved with the dangerous person who exterminated the Star Mansion sect's Verdant Seaport branch. Too late to back down now, old man.